So the Rivers Trust. The Rivers Trusts were established in 1989. The first trust was formed in the Ballinderry Pearl Mussel breeding programme, and there has been continuous growth of the trust movement across the island of Ireland since that time. In actual fact, the Irish Trusts make up 1/3 of the total Rivers Trust membership, and Ireland are celebrating their 20 years of the Rivers Trust movement this year. So, oh good, who we are. We are independent, community-led charity. We are a registered charity both in Ireland and the UK. We are the umbrella body for the Rivers Trust movement in Ireland, Northern Ireland and Great Britain. We're experts in the use of nature-based solutions, and we mitigate against many sources of pollution. We build climate resilience, and we help nature's recoveries in rivers. So our mission is wild, healthy, natural rivers valued by all. Very simple, but very effective. And our mission is to protect, promote, and enhance our freshwaters and estuarine ecosystems for both people and wildlife. This map currently shows the locations of our Rivers Trusts on the island of Ireland. We have 6 in Northern Ireland, 3 on the border counties, and 13 in the southern section. We do not set up Rivers Trusts per se, but we assist local people, individuals, communities, concerned individuals who come together for whatever reason, and then we will step in to help them on their journey to the establishment of a River Trust. Currently, we're actively chatting or actively meeting with community groups, and I foresee this number of the number of Rivers Trusts increasing gradually over the next number of years. So the Rivers Trust is an umbrella body for the Rivers Trust, as I say, on the island of Ireland. This all-island approach is necessary because river catchments transcend political boundaries, and Ireland is a distinct bioregion. It's the fastest growing environmental movement on the island of Ireland, and we're one of only a few NGOs that operate on an all-Ireland basis. So what is a Rivers Trust? Rivers Trusts are community-led initiatives started by local people to care for their local rivers, sometimes as a result of maybe a local environmental problem, such as a pollution incident or declining water quality. They have environment goals to improve their local rivers on a catchment management scale for public health, for public benefit. Rivers Trusts focus on practical rivers in improvements, including education, biodiversity, native species management, and pollution and flood mitigation. They are bottom-up organisations formed by local individuals or groups, and then they're supported, developed and grow by the Rivers Trust to access funding opportunities, training, collaborative support from expertise across the movement. So what we do, this is just a slide, as I said, of the practical tasks that are carried out by some of the Rivers Trust movement on the island of Ireland. River cleanups being very popular, and a great community engagement has from those river cleanups. We assist landowners in enhancing rivers, and I say working with communities. So currently, the Rivers Trust have some campaigns running, and I'll just briefly run through 3 of these. The Big River Watch being the first one that's on the list there. The Big River Watch is a citizen science initiative that encourages individuals to monitor and report on their local streams by spending approximately 15 minutes observing their local water bodies and recording what they see on a specially designed app. This initiative was launched last year, and it's this year going to be undertaken on 2 occasions, both in Ireland. It's already happened over the May weekend, and we're hoping it will also happen again in a date in the autumn. And there is ambitions to expand this platform. The other initiative that we're involved in, our campaign, is the State of the Rivers report. This is a biannual comprehensive assessment and evaluates the health challenges and overall condition of the river sources across Ireland, Northern Ireland and Britain, to inform conservation efforts and policy decisions. And finally, the sewage map. This is a new initiative. It is an interactive online tool that maps sewage overflow and discharge points. It will be launched later this year, and it will include data from Ireland and Northern Ireland for the first time. This will empower members of the public to make informed decisions about the condition of the rivers for recreational use, and also it will inform them of the scale of the pollution entering their freshwater systems. Some of the projects that are ongoing on the Rivers Trust at the moment, we have multiple EU-funded projects such as Peace Plus, Interreg Northwest Europe and Horizon Europe. And my colleague Freya, who will be finishing today's presentation, will be presenting information on an Interreg project called Butter Plus with the iCatch network, Woodlands for Water, Sustainable Catchment Programme, which is specifically rolled out in Northern Ireland. So this is a summary of the slide of the work that has been undertaken in the 22-23 year. And as you can see here, the trusts have engaged with over approximately 4,500 farmers, 21,500 volunteers, and in excess of 26,000 school children. The impact report for 23-24 is being currently compiled and demonstrates an upward trajectory on all these metrics, which is very encouraging. Now I'm going to move on to the next part, which is what next for Lough Neagh. So Lough Neagh, as you some background information on Lough Neagh, which I'm sure most of you will notice. It's located in the centre of Northern Ireland. It is the largest freshwater body in the United Kingdom and Ireland, and covers 383 kilometres square. Considering its immense size, it's a relatively shallow loch with an average depth of 8.9 metres, and the loch is part of an interconnected network of 6 other rivers and several tributaries and streams. The main rivers being the Main, 6 Mile Water, Upper Bann, Blackwater, Ballinderry and Myola. So, this is a very important point. 45% of water supplies for Northern Ireland come from Lough Neagh. The loch is an internationally important wetland, and it's globally recognised under the Ramsar Convention. It's essential for water-based recreation and businesses such as the commercial eel and fishery business, which operate on the lakes or on the shores of the loch. Despite its significant importance, Lough Neagh faces several pollution challenges, and which has resulted in massive choking blooms of blue-green algae. So, some information on blue-green algae. The water quality in Lough Neagh is hypereutrophic, which means that it suffers from excess plant and algal growth from the high levels of nitrates and phosphorus in the water. Blue-green algae, its actual correct name is cyanobacteria, thrives in these high nutrient-rich waters and warm waters. These blooms release toxins harmful to nature, to humans, animals, and the aquatic life. Last summer, extensive blooms in Lough Neagh brought widespread attention to this issue. The algal crisis affected tourism, fisheries, local businesses, and public health, creating anxiety and economic blooms. And it really brought to the fore and highlighted the need for urgent action to be taken. So the sources of this pollution, primarily agricultural runoff, sewage discharge, urban pollution, invasive species, and domestic septic tanks have all contributed to the nutrient load in the loch. Climate change exacerbated the problem by increasing water temperatures and altering precipitation patterns, with increased rainfall bringing excess nutrients from the surrounding catchment in the rivers into the loch. So, the algal bloom last summer captured both political and public attention, both at home and around the world. During the crisis, the lack of a functioning Northern Ireland Assembly hindered any real political progress in addressing the issue at that time, and the lack of that leadership left the people of Northern Ireland anxious about the impact on human and environmental health of these algal blooms. However, the establishment of the Northern Ireland Assembly and the appointment of Andrew Muir as the new DERA Minister in early 24 has brought renewed hope to solving this problem. In fact, Minister Muir's first outing as a new minister was the shores of Lough Neagh, and he has both publicly and politically signalled his commitment to tackling the water quality crisis. So what's next, or what's the plan for the future, the work action? Stormont officials are currently preparing a report on the pathways of pollution into Lough Neagh, and this is due for publication imminently, and it's hopefully in July. While we in the Rivers Trust have not had sight of this document, we understand it will be broken down into 4 pillars around education, interventions and incentives, regulation and enforcement. The report aims to identify the main drivers of pollution and propose proactive solutions. The River Trust hopes that these recommendations are backed by funding and legislation. They will address the complexity of the problem here and provide a clear roadmap for action, while also managing expectations regarding a timeline for recovery. And that's an important issue. The Trust also hopes that it will invest in education of the public to the scale of the problem in the loch and how they can be part of the solution. Solving the political crisis on the loch requires ongoing management and continuous monitoring. This involves collaboration among all statutory agencies, environmental NGOs, the public business, and the training opportunities to tackle pollution at its source. The Rivers Trust agriculture, as I said, is a significant pressure on the loch, and one of the programs that the Rivers Trust has implemented is the sustainable SCP, sorry, I've forgotten this to say, Sustainable Catchment Programme, SCP for short. This was rolled out a few years ago for improving water quality across selected catchments in Northern Ireland. It is funded by DERA, by the Green Growth Initiative Programme, and to date there has been 2.65 million sterling contributed to this fund. The programme is delivered by the Rivers Trust directly and also by Ballinderry Rivers Trust, and it has worked with 216 groups to date. 3 non-regulatory farmer advisors are employed directly by the Rivers Trust, and there's also a Woodlands for Water officer, and they aim to create very detailed water environmental management plans which will help to address pollution at source with the farming community and support the sustainability of their farmer business. The SCP leverages the Rivers Trust expertise in hydrology, ecology and community engagement to produce these, for this engagement, for the aims to create lasting and improvements in water quality and ecosystem health. Key interventions of this programme, the SCP programme, are the installation of river buffers, following the directions of roadways running around streams, planting of trees and hedgerows, and separation of clean and dirty water at farm level. It is hoped to expand this programme now across just not the Lough Neagh catchments, but the wider area across Northern Ireland. And expanding the programme will involve more comprehensive farm engagement, increased stakeholder collaboration, and additional funding for broader water-friendly farming practices. So Lough Neagh is not an anomaly. It exemplifies what happens when a water body is subjected to excess pollution, pressure, and insufficient environmental protection. It is, as I say, it's not an anomaly. The combination of invasive species, climate-related issues, and pollution has created the perfect storm, threatening one of Northern Ireland's most vital natural resources. Unfortunately, it has taken the levels of crisis that happened last year for people to wake up and realise the impact that we are contributing to draining this resource without investing back in the future. Lough Neagh is not an isolated incident, and the map on the left here shows the location of algal blooms in the 22-23 period across the United Kingdom and Ireland. And now, finally, I'm there. Lough Neagh is a multi-jurisdictional water body spanning across several local authorities, areas, administrative boundaries, and 2 countries. Thus, the development and implementation of a catchment scale management plan requires close cooperation between all the stakeholders and government structures. Addressing the blue-green algae crisis will require collective coordination and large-scale action. We need proactive measures, sustained investment, and community engagement to restore and protect the jewel in Northern Ireland's ecological crown. And now I have another last topic, is just a little case study on one of our trusts, the Slaney Rivers Trust. The Slaney Rivers Trust, it was set up back in 2005. This was a rivers trust established, it was actually the first rivers trust established on the island of Ireland, and its primary objective was to protect, improve and rehabilitate the stocks of salmon and other indigenous fish. From the 1970s, pre the 1970s, the Slaney River was Ireland's one of Ireland's great spring salmon fisheries. So, IFI have stated that just a little bit on a barrier, which is a main problem up in the Slaney. IFI has stated that there is in excess of 73,000 potential barriers on our national water network. Barriers are anything that stop the fish or slow fish from migrating upstream on an annual basis. They include weirs, bridges, culverts, a build-up of debris, and hydroelectric generation stations. Matt Norton, who's the Rivers Trust All-Ireland Director, was recently invited to the Oireachtas Joint Committee on Environment and Climate Action for barriers to fish migration, and that just happened back in April of 24. The committee noted that the barriers on Irish rivers have a devastating impact on biodiversity, particularly on populations of migrating species such as the Atlantic salmon and European eel. Mark informed the committee that in the mid-1970s, the number of salmon returning to Ireland was approximately 1.7 million, where it's now down to 150,000. And Ireland's eel population has also decreased by 90% since the 1970s. Mark went on to state that the loss of the Irish salmon would not only diminish our natural heritage, but would also rob us of the ensuing spirit they symbolise, as well as the economic loss to the economy. So, as I say, the Slaney Rivers Trust is down on the southeast of Ireland. It is, the headwaters are in the Lough Mountains in County Wicklow, and it flows southeastward into the sea at Wexford Harbour. It's approximately 120 kilometres in length and drains an area of 1,918 kilometres squared, and this area is mostly farmland and a considerable amount of intensive dairy farmers. The soil type in this area, in this catchment, is free draining, so the concentration of nitrates in the water is a problem, which the speakers yesterday pointed out with the Carlow catchment, which sits to the left of this one. So high nitrates concentration in the water is a substantial issue down there. So the Slaney Rivers Trust, which I said was established in 2005, have concentrated a lot of their efforts on the removal of a weir in a little village called Clohannon, which is approximately 20 miles upstream of Wexford Harbour. The weir, which you can see in the picture here, is actually perpendicular to the bridge and has been in situ for a very long time. The Rivers Trust, with the help of IFI, funding, yes, it's perpendicular, yeah. The help of IFI funding for funding and staff and the Rivers Trust have commissioned numerous reports, and they applied for planning permission to modify the tail race in slightly over 5 years ago, but there were objections. And one of why they started with the tail race was the returning salmon and trout were getting caught on the tail race, and they couldn't get out of the tail race, so it was leading into deaths before they ever got up any of the stream. So finding agreement with all the parties involved in this process has been problematic. However, the negotiations are ongoing, and the Liver Slaney are very determined to bring this to a successful conclusion, and it's hoped that agreement will be reached by all parties at some stage in the future. This is just another image of the weir, and as you can see, this was taken in the summer months, I think last year. Yeah, it was last summer, and as you can see, the water level in the head race is actually at a higher level than in the main channel of the Slaney. And with changes in weather patterns, this is going to continue, and this is causing great trouble. But as you can see, down at the end of the head race is the hydroelectric plant. So, and finally, the Slaney River case study clearly demonstrates the complexity of the barrier movement. While no two cases are going to be the same in Ireland to remove barriers, it needs active will. Political active will is essential to change, because interventions will need finance and legislation to make them effective. Thank you for listening to me today. Cheers.
Not done with the Rivers Trust just yet, 1 second. Now, so hi everybody, my name is Freya, and I'm going to be explaining wet agriculture with the River Moy and its project, which is called Buffer Plus. So first off, I'm going to explain what that is. So Buffer Plus is a project partially funded by Interreg NWE that will run for 4 years across 21 partner projects across 5 northwestern European countries. You see there's Belgium, France, Ireland, Germany and the Netherlands. Each partner project aims to restore the capacity of peatlands to act as a double buffer for the surrounding waterways, absorbing and holding carbon and water. I don't think I need to tell you that Ireland and indeed most of Northern Europe's peatlands are in a dire state, and this is having a trickle-down effect on the surrounding waterways, ranging from eutrophication to flooding. Hence the concept and requirement for peatlands to act as a double buffer. So moving on very quickly, these are just the 3 key project pillars found within Buffer Plus. You'll see restoring and preserving peatlands while still maintaining a level of productivity. Second is to formulate business models for these peatlands, be it through ecosystem services, tourism or wet agriculture. And finally, and very importantly for the Rivers Trust, we're to involve relevant parties which encompass the quadruple helix in the governance of the project. So within the Irish partners, there are 3 pilot sites, one of which is based in the Inny Valley and is coordinated by the South Kerry Development Partnership. The Rivers Trust is coordinating the other 2, the first being in Inishowen, County Donegal, where peatland restoration is being utilised to enhance local blue services, such as natural flood management and improving drinking water. The intention is to collaborate with commonage owners to carry out the restoration on their land, with the other option being to create a demonstration site nearby where we can highlight the positives of restoration and create more positive conversations around the topic. But now we'll kind of move on to the key topic of my part of this presentation, which is the River Moy and its pilot project. For some background, the River Moy spans 90 kilometres and is a very important location for salmon and sea trout angling. Therefore, water quality is very important for not just the ecology of the river, but also the local economy. Agricultural runoff is the second highest pollutant found within the River Moy and its tributaries. So there's a demand for innovative practices to remediate and mitigate these issues. As part of the River Moy Trust, we aim to utilise peat soils' buffering capabilities by means of Paludiculture, which is a production of crops on peat soils. I'll get into that a little bit more in a second. This pilot will act as an introduction to Paludiculture for the wider Irish audience and generate a new stream of income for the private landowner. So, very briefly, what is Paludiculture? Because I'm sure most of you have not heard of it, because it is a bizarre word. By CAP's definition, Paludiculture is a productive land use of wet and re-wetted peatlands that preserves peat soils and thereby minimises carbon emissions and subsidence. It is being promoted as an alternative to draining peatlands for agricultural purposes, hosts a variety of ecological benefits such as water table management and carbon holding, but it's also been shown to be a financially viable alternative to even grazing dairy cattle on the same land when it's drained, which is no mean feat. One misconception commonly seen in the conversation around peatland restoration is that the water must be raised to surface level in all scenarios. Every situation is different, and in the case of private farmland, that's just not a realistic expectation. It's in fact not needed for most of the crops grown on Paludiculture projects. Speaking of crops, here are a few examples of the ones that we intend to grow on our project. You kind of have some more accessible ones for the public, which are blueberries, cranberries, and celery. I already have a market here, and then you have kind of the more experimental ones. Experimental, so you have cattails or bulrush, which is being used in the Netherlands as a form of insulation called typhoboard. And then on the bottom there, you will see sphagnum moss, which is it's commonly found in a healthy bog, and it's being touted as a replacement for peat in potting soils currently. So this I'll fly through. As of this year, efforts have been mostly filtered into sourcing potential sites for the pilot, with thanks to combined efforts of myself as project officer and the River Moy Trust members. From the initial verbal assessment of the landowners, 12 sites were visited and a preliminary ground assessment was carried out. There are currently 4 sites under consideration. So next steps for this year are carrying out more in-depth assessments to choose one specific site to carry out the works, which will include a degree of restoration measures later on this year. Alongside this, we aim to reach out to relevant stakeholders in the peatland restoration and Paludiculture sectors to grow our knowledge based on the practices, along with engaging with the community to actually grow the River Moy Trust itself. From 2025 onwards, our ambitions are to begin planting our crops in spring and summer, start to formulate a business strategy for the landowner post-project, and finally, in 2026, we will host a Paludi Fair, showcasing the work carried out in the site so far to relevant national stakeholders and members of the Buffer Plus Consortium. Hopefully, you might be able to see some of you there. So that's us. Thank you very much. Try to make it closer.